What is up, guys? Welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be talking about Square, ticker symbol SQ, Square Inc. And I'm going to be talking about why I decided to invest in this company. I'm going to start kind of with how I got introduced to the company, the moment in which I realized this company was going to be very successful, and kind of my thinking along the way. And then also tell you when I decided to buy and why I decided to finally make this video. And I'm going to start with when I first learned about Square. It was in university, and they had come to campus to hire engineers, well, actually really anyone, but it was part of the engineering school's career day fair, and they were giving away these little Square readers for free, and I thought they were cool. I had no use for it. I didn't have a business, and I knew very little about the point of sales system, but I did think it was really cool that you could have this little reader and plug it into your phone and accept payments. And so they were giving them for free, and I took it. And I want to start by highlighting this free feature, right? Because what I like about Square, one thing I like about Square is they have tiers to sort of as they take you up their tier system in terms of the products they offer, and they have a very wide array of products that we're going to get into a little bit later. But they started with these little Square readers, and the idea was that they wanted any person to be able to accept payments via card. If you didn't, a lot of people were moving less and less to a cashless society, and more people are using card, more people are using things like cryptocurrencies, digital currencies. And so that was in, I think, around 2012 or 13. It might have been sometime after that. I don't really remember. But as time went on, I started seeing Square point of sale systems at different businesses, a lot of small businesses, boutique firms, a lot of food trucks. You would just see, they were kind of, I think, one of the first movers in that space. Since then, a lot of people have kind of jumped on, but Square was one of the first ones that I really took note of. And I wasn't really too interested in investing at that time, so I hadn't really thought about it. But I kind of want to just throw in a little bit of tidbits, because when I'm making these videos, very few people are really going to care what I'm saying, but the reason I'm making them is partially for myself, to go back and reference in terms of my own thinking and see how things played out, but also because I really hope to be historically correct, and I hope that someone in the future looks at these and can see how I think, how I make my investment decisions, and why I do what I do. And so, moving on to why I decided to invest, right? You got to start, and I say this all the time, bet on the jockey, not the horse. Jack Dorsey is an entrepreneur amongst entrepreneurs, right? This guy has been in the Silicon Valley space, and he started Twitter. He was the CEO of Twitter, a very, very successful, I guess, sort of Web 2.0 entrepreneur. Twitter is one of the most successful social media sites, and I think it's actually becoming kind of repopularized at this current moment in time. And he left Twitter. He's now the CEO of Twitter again, and at some point, I don't actually remember the year of which he started Square. It might have been 2014, but for some reason I feel like it was my freshman year that I got the Square reader. But whatever, he starts Square, and Square is, their main product was these point of sale systems, which as I entered into my own entrepreneurial career, I started realizing how important this is for businesses. And anyone who started a business knows how crucial it is to have your point of sale system, have something that's reliable, have something that works, have something that you're able to quickly, get data from, and be able to do your accounting, do payroll, whatever it is, right? And Square resurfaced onto my radar this summer, whenever Cash App was released and became very popularized. Charlie Munger talks about, one of his secrets for success in investing is that he has a thesis or something that he knows really well. And from there, he's able to sort of invest around that idea. For me, that thing that I believe I know very well is Bitcoin. And the reason I actually downloaded the Cash App and got a cash card, and I made a video about this the day I got my cash card, which are very nice product, right? And again, a free service. I did this because I was a Bitcoiner, and Cash App made it very easy to purchase Bitcoin. They are a Bitcoin only, they're not like Coinbase, which has all these altcoins and such. And I liked that. I thought it was very useful. I thought it was very valuable. Oh, is there a class in here?
There is.
Oh no. Okay, so I had to relocate because there's a class in there. And I'm gonna try and pick up where I left off. Yeah, so that was kind of the time. This was the summertime. I made a video about it, and this was the time that Square popped up in my radar again as a company. And I started looking at it. I don't think I was really interested in investing in the company right away. I just started, trying to figure out a little bit about Jack Dorsey. I, found out he was the CEO, and, Lightning Network was being really hyped during the summer of 2018. A lot of people were talking about Lightning Network, and so I was very curious to see if there was already plans to integrate this with Cash App. But one thing that happened that summer is that Cash App became the most downloaded app in the finance section, right? They outpaced Venmo. So they got a huge user adoption in a very short amount of time, and this became very exciting to me. Then I think it was around this time that I started wanting to look into Square as an investment. And I looked at Square, and I actually didn't even look at the market cap. I just looked at the price, and I realized I did not have the money at that time to buy Square. I think the price it might have been close to $100. I think it was in like 80 or 90, somewhere around there. But it was still a bull market, the summer of 2018, prices were going up, and I just didn't have a lot of disposable income ready to invest. And so I just kind of put it to the side, but Square never really left my imagination. And then I started seeing more things, Square in the news. I started seeing more Square readers around at companies. And I want to just stop here and say, this is something that Charlie Munger talks about as well, which is that you can invest everyone has opportunities or businesses that they are knowledgeable about, and things that they use and products that they use that they're familiar with that are opportunities for investment, right? I started using the cash card and started getting, $1 off on my coffee at Starbucks, 10% off at Chick-fil-A, 10% off at Chipotle. Started getting all these really cool perks just by using the cash card. I started doing my, my weekly Bitcoin purchases using the Cash App. So it really became part of my day-to-day use. And then I discovered that you can do direct deposit into Cash App. So basically you can live an entirely bankless life. You don't have to use one of these traditional banks and that hit you with a lot of fees, services fees, overdraft fees, all these things. And you can send money in between banks very cheaply. So I just started seeing how much utility this thing had. And then the next thing happened, which is that I learned that Square had applied for a banking license, right? So they had ambitions to become a bank, which would create, kind of new legal provisions that they'd be able to have to operate in. And then they acquired Weebly. Weebly is a online platform where you can make websites, right, for e-commerce. And then I started looking at their financial statements. I realized that their profits, their gross profits, are doubling every 2 years for the last 6 years, basically. Maybe it was 4 years, I don't really remember. But there's a lot of growth. They're putting a lot of money into research and development. And so you have to be able to think forwardly, right? When I learned that Square was seeking a banking license, this was one of the moments where I knew I was going to invest in Square, because this was the moment where I finally looked at the market cap of Square. I looked at the market cap of JP Morgan Chase, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, and I saw how incredibly high those companies' market caps were compared to Square's, and for good reason. And my vision of the future, you have to be able to think in terms of where is a company going, right? One thing we do know is that statistics are showing that a lot of people are, leaving their banks. I think Chase has, over the last year, 2 years, they've been losing customers. People aren't signing up for new accounts. That's why they're giving away money to like get people to sign up for an account. But really, consumers are learning that things such as Square exist and Cash App exist. Like, you don't have to have a bank. You can get direct deposit, and you can get all the features of banking, online banking, things such as Ally, right? Goldman Sachs has recently kind of pivoted with their new Marcus online banking, right? So a lot of these things are taking place. And I have a vision of the future in which I don't believe in this like kind of apocalyptic hyper-Bitcoinization future, although it would be nice. But I do see Bitcoin becoming used more and more as a store of value and as peer-to-peer cash, as described in the white paper. And I think that's going to be enabled by Lightning Network. And I believe that businesses that are building on top of Bitcoin are going to position themselves to capture a lot of that value. The same way that Facebook was able to capture value in Web 2.0, the same way that Google was able to capture value in Web 2.0. And this is a great point to talk about. How are these companies able to capture that value during that time? Well, one thing that they did is they gave away things for free, right? Square gives away point of sale systems to small businesses for free, and they try to bring you up their tier. They give banking services to people for free, right? And one of their newest products is a debit card for businesses. They're Square businesses who are using Square. So as soon as I make a payment on Square, as a business, I can go and use that debit card and use that money right away. And I can get discounts whenever I use my Square business card at other Square businesses or businesses that take Square processing. What else? They have, so how do they make money? They have cash flows in whenever people buy Bitcoin on their service, they do a slight markup. They have a little bit of profit there. They get 2%, I think, fees whenever people use a Visa or a MasterCard on their Square. In a lot of cases, that's about the same that like merchants are getting with other processing units. It actually might be cheaper in some cases, like American Express, depending on the card and the processor. But they're basically doing business as usual, but giving things to people for free. And I believe that Weebly was probably the critical moment. That acquisition was the moment in which I really realized that Square was going to be huge. And this is because I have a vision of the future in which there are a lot more solopreneurs, a lot more people realizing that they can make a living and live comfortably by pursuing their passions and starting their own businesses and creating their own personal brands and such. And Weebly gives people this access for free. You can set up a Weebly account for free. You can start an online business, no cost. You can get a Square reader. You can start accepting credit cards in person. Absolutely free. And if your business is successful and you'll just continue to grow with Square, right? And if Square is able to get a banking license, they're already able to, they offer a lot of features to the businesses that work with them. One of the features that they offer is loans to businesses. They offer, so there's some profit there, I'm sure, payroll services, scheduling services that are all usable with people who are using the point of sale system for Square on the business side. And they're very much focusing on pivoting towards trying to acquire some of the market space as, companies such as Shopify, right? They're really starting to compete in that area. And if Bitcoin is successful, Square will be positioned uniquely well compared to every other business to integrate Lightning Network, which will allow them to be a central routing node, which could be dangerous, by the way, but I think a lot of people will be willing to take that trade-off, and they will be able to acquire Satoshis over time, which I believe will just be it'll be a giant transfer of valuation between a company like Square and Bank of America, Morgan Stanley, JP Morgan Chase, Wells Fargo, all those companies that have just been bashing Bitcoin, and they have their CEOs criticizing Bitcoin, putting out anti-Bitcoin propaganda, doing all these nonsensical things instead of trying to, and they're probably doing things behind scenes, low-key, but they are just ruining their reputation. And I believe that a company such as Square, like, people talk about how Web 2.0 companies disrupted, journalism, disrupted media, and companies such as Netflix have been able to displace Hollywood and Blockbuster, right? And Amazon has been able to beat out things such as Walmart. And I believe that Square is going to beat out many of the banks that exist today. And that's kind of the thesis. And it's very much driven by my understanding of Bitcoin and the role that Bitcoin plays in the global macro. And I finally decided to make my purchase into Square during the, I don't know what you want to call it, like the drawback, the pullback, during late 2018, December, I think it was like 28th or 29th, I made my first purchase of Square. Square had dropped in value about 40%. I got my, my first position in at $50.50. And since then, Square has gone up 25%. Now, obviously, in a bull market, everyone's a genius, right? Like, I decided to finally make this video though, because a couple of days ago, a Wall Street firm put out some anti-Square propaganda, research article, saying basically that they are reducing their, their projected whatever for, I don't even know what these people talk about half the time. It's just because here's the thing. The people who work on Wall Street don't know necessarily anything more than you do. And from having gone to a university that attracts a lot of iBankers, a lot of the people who went to investment banks, in my opinion, were some of the dumbest people I met at university. Non-creative thinkers, people who were copy machines, right? These people are not able to think outside of the box, and they just kind of go with the flow. But the point is that one of these firms put out some anti-Square propaganda, basically saying that they think that Square is, they're losing focus and they're trying to do too much by getting a banking license. And really all this is that the banks are scared of Square, and they ought to be afraid of Square, because I believe that Square is going to become one of the biggest companies. And I'm very happy to have purchased Square, even though if you look at Square's graph over the last, since it IPO'd, it's literally just been up. And I think it's going to continue to the upside for at least, my horizon with this investment is 20 years out. I'm not looking to sell any of my Square stock anytime in the next 20 years, basically. And I think it's going to pay out very well for me. And I'm very excited to grow with this company and continue to watch Jack in his second go around, his second company. And he's battle tested. This guy knows what he's doing. He knows how to be an entrepreneur. He knows how to play the game. And yes, like I've said, you got to bet on the jockey. I think he's a great person to bet on. I really don't listen to much of what he says. I know what he's done in the past, and you can just make judgment based off of that. And what else? I'm kind of getting to the close here. Yes, the point I was saying is whenever they came out with this anti-Square propaganda, the stock dropped about 7%. And I made another purchase, right? It went down. It was trading around 75. It went down to 68. And I was like, dude, I'll buy more. I'll do it again. And so I bought some more, and I decided to finally make this video because I have investments that I don't talk about because I'm not confident about. I only really make videos about things that I'm willing to kind of go on record. And I talk about Snapchat, I talk about Bitcoin, and now I talk about Square, because these are investments in companies that I really believe in. And I think I'm going to be right. And time will tell. I could be wrong, and even if I am wrong, I think that's important for people to know. But yeah, these videos I've realized, when I'm going to start talking about investment type of videos, they're just going to be long. But that's because there's a lot to say, and I want to be able to challenge myself in the future, and I want people to challenge me as well. And yeah, if you guys have any thoughts or questions about Square, please let me know. Thank you guys for bearing with this very long video. If you've made it this far, I really appreciate it. Please follow me on Twitter. My handle is @elima_III, and you can follow me on Instagram. It's the exact same thing. I talk a lot about investment, talk a lot about Bitcoin, talk a lot about just general life improvement and whatever other random musings I decide to post. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.